Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the And Both podcast. My guest is Amy Leclerc. She is a co-owner and president of franchising at Sit Still Kids, an innovative children's salon redefining and modernizing the traditional haircare experience. Amy is widely recognized as the franchise gal and brings over 2 decades of experience in scaling and operational excellence. She's played a pivotal role in transforming Bar 3 from a boutique fitness studio to a powerhouse with 150 locations nationwide. And since joining Sit Still in 2018, Leclerc has leveraged her expertise in strategic growth and franchise development to expand the brand to 26 locations across 14 states, with plans for an additional 50 salons by 2026. Her unique approach combines creative problem solving with a keen understanding of consumer experience, making her a trailblazer in turning niche brick and mortar concepts into national successes. Leclerc is a wellness-focused mom of 2 and embodies a balance between entrepreneurial drive and restorative habits. Whether championing innovative business strategies, leading franchisees to success, or carving out moments for self-care, Leclerc attributes her performance mindset to an unwavering focus on productivity, creativity, and calm. Her passion for growth, mentorship, and creating joyful experiences continues to shape the franchising landscape. Now, this episode I think is pretty fascinating because I know nothing or knew nothing about franchising going into it. When you think about franchising, you think about or I do, McDonald's or some fast food or some restaurant type thing. And so how you get something from a boutique, like a one-off kids hair salon, to expanding nationwide, like the process of doing that, I think is totally fascinating. And the fact that she has done this a couple of times and has had a lot of success in that, I think is really cool, alongside growing her family. So this is Amy's story. Hello, and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest today is Amy Leclerc. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you to be here. How about we kick off with you letting people know what you want them to know about you?
What is there to know about me? Well, like all your guests, I'm a multi-hyphenate. I am a mother of 2, a wife, a resident of the Pacific Northwest, and I am a insatiable entrepreneur.
I love that. How old are your kids?
13, yikes, 13 and 10. They're old.
Double digits.
Yeah, both of them. My daughter just turned 10 a couple weeks ago, and it was the turning of a page. It's like no more single digits, like forever.
Yeah. When my oldest hit double digits, I was like, oh, I don't know why. I did not expect it to be such a gut punch.
Yeah.
It
It starts to accelerate. Everything accelerates. Yeah, having a 13-year-old and even that year of 12 to 30, there's just no going back, which is something to really, wrap your head around.
Yeah, and something to definitely stop and take a minute and say, oh, this is happening. Wow. Yeah. That middle teenagehood, they're almost there, but they're not there, but they want to be there. And you're slow down, but speed up all at the same time.
Totally. I'm like, how much do you need me? Am I supposed to lean in or lean out? Am I observing or participating? I mean, this is, yeah.
And you navigate the dance of what do you need right now? And it's oh,
I know.
You're I can't read the I know what it sounds like when you're hungry or when you're tired, when you're whatever,
Right.
like when you were a baby, but now I don't know because is too general. We need to just,
New general. Yeah. Just sheer, just like angst of being 13 on planet Earth. Yeah.
I can identify completely. I feel like a lot of times I still feel like I'm 13 on planet Earth. I just have all of these people I have to care for.
It's very humbling when I am experiencing the challenges of that age, that era, and I think back to being 13 and I'm like, dude, I get it. I
Mhm.
get it. It is like alien invasion in the body, in the mind. I was so tired as a 13-year-old. Like, that's like I remember just being really tired. So I try to give him a lot of grace, which is an exercise.
You are going to be a professional athlete by the time your second hits 13.
Oh, yes. Spiritually correct. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So you said insatiable entrepreneur. Tell me about that.
Yeah. As somebody, in my early 20s embarking on like starting a career, which at the time would never have even said this is my career. It's like I had a job to pay my rent in New York City and like maybe have $20 to go to a bar on a Friday night. I mean, it was never intentional that I would find myself sort of in this startup culture, and specifically in the franchise marketplace, which is where I am. But I love participating in the launch and build of new concepts. And I was thinking about it the other day because I've been in franchising now for about 15 years and have had my hands in a few different businesses over the years. But the thread line of what like gets me going is being a part of a business who their reason for being is in some way, shape, or form being the best part of somebody's day. And that could be boutique fitness, which was, I was at Bar 3, which is a bar-based franchise. I was there for a long time. Today, my world at Sit Still, which is a kids' hair salon, and a handful of other businesses that I think at the end of the day, if you ask somebody, what was the highlight of your day? It was taking that Bar 3 class or going with my kiddo to get their first haircut or, some of the other brands that I've helped shape and mold and launch. And that's the thread line. And I just kind of can't help myself. That's what piques my interest. And I generally just kind of like dive right in.
I love that. It's that notion of like, okay, I'm not necessarily like you're not someone who gives kids their haircuts, right? So it's
No.
not like you came in through the lens of like, I'm the person who opened this salon and now I want to franchise it. It's like the mechanical piece of that, I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I do feel like I have a pretty good nose for what is coming around the corner, sort of what the culture is craving and needing and maybe whispering for before it becomes mass. I love the build. I love niche, startup. And yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I have like no skills except for like a strong intuition around business and what specifically like lifestyle. What are people craving? What is going to be the thing that's going to make somebody's day? And so, yeah, I mean, I do not cut hair. I did teach Bar 3 classes. That was sort of I was very much an inside out evolution there from being a client to an instructor to helping to run that enterprise. But yeah, it's been very colorful.
I love that because it's that idea of like, there is always that person, and I think intuition is a highly underrated skill because in order to have the intuitive lens, you have to be incredibly observant, and you have to be able to sort of see 3, 4, 10 steps down the line to say,
Yeah.
okay, based on this, it's almost like before it rains, and like, or I mean, I'm Canadian. I live in the US, but I'm Canadian. So it's like before it snows, the air smells like
Right.
snow. it's
Yes.
like that, but for business. Like
Correct.
you walk outside in January and you're like, it's going to snow. And your kids are like, you have your like Canadian spidey sense going. And I'm like, no, it's going to snow. And then it starts snowing. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
you get attuned to it. And you're right. Yeah. And it can be subtle. And, I have thought about this a lot too, because yeah, it's easy for me to say, and not all of my endeavors have been home runs. Relatively speaking, I've taken some pretty big swings, but I also have had a safety net. And that I just think it's important because you're going to have listeners who are like, I have a great idea, or I sort of have the thing that I want to pursue. And the reality is to be able to like take the idea or the concept and grow it and scale it, other things need to be in place. Other variables need to be in place. I was lucky. I spent my 20s in New York City working in magazine publishing and built a career doing that. And, as a single person living in a studio apartment, like my expenses were low and I was able to sock away money
mhm.
that allowed me to make changes and to invest and to relocate and sort of like I was able to mobilize myself. But I've thought about that. I mean, I'm almost 48. Like, this is a long time ago. And it's like, gosh, how was I able to sort of, yeah, be an entrepreneur? And it's because I set myself up to sort of insert myself in a business that then allowed me to open the next store and then the next store and then the next store. So I opted out of like the corporate America trajectory pretty early, but I was lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Wanted
I mean, well, for sure. And I feel like that too is a time where, you know, people are not necessarily they weren't talking about investing and they weren't talking about that in the way that they talk about it now, right? Like there's apps that you can do with your kids that sets them up for saving money and all of
oh,
those pieces that just didn't, I mean, the technology to build those did not happen
yeah.
until 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think, timing is everything. And my timing, at least for my own career arc, was just perfect.
Hmm.
It was just perfect. So, yeah,
Yes.
I love being in the entrepreneurial environment and having exposure to cool women doing rad stuff out there.
So you were with Bar 3 for, you said like 15 years?
No, I was at Bar 3 for close to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had both of my kids while helping to build that business. Yeah.
How did that is my question. How do you navigate that? Because there is a lot of, there's perception and reality, right? The perception is that the founder will work, 100 hours a week and like live on coffee and their own like dreams and all of those things
Right.
and be completely one singular focus on that goal. And then when you bring people in, this idea of like trying to bring people in that also eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner as well. But I think that's something that has changed in the last 15 years at least, and definitely in the last 5. That has changed a lot. So how did you navigate that startup life, that entrepreneur piece, that coming in to say, okay, we've got 3 studios and now we're going to expand this out to 150. How did you navigate that while growing your own life?
Yeah. I mean, it like that kind of is the question. And there's a lot to that. It was a build the plane while flying it situation. The beauty of Bar 3 is that at its core, its reason for being is balance. Like that is Sadie Lincoln, the founder of Bar 3, that has been her calling card from day one was balance in the body, balance in life. And so we as a growing team all rallied around the ability, the freedom, the wherewithal to take care of ourselves, which was such a gift. I mean, that it was sort of antithetical to like my New York life where it was just like, give us your everything and then 10% more. This was not that. And Bar3 really attracted, certainly in the early days, women who were very achievement oriented, driven, were really saw Bar3 as an extension of themselves because the class and the studio environment was so profound in their own lives, but also allowed for this real inventory to be taken around, okay, what do I need to bring my best self to work? Like we were asking those questions in 2009, which to your point, today is sort of like what we're all talking about. But back then was pretty provocative to sort of think less is more here. Nobody's working 12-hour days. And what I learned through that was like, that's when you actually give your best self. When you're given the freedom, the liberty, the ability to sort of create your own destiny and shape your work life to integrate fully into your whole life, that they're not two separate compartments. Like you are who you are. That put such a fire under me to just do my best and to take great care of myself.
It's amazing, right? When somebody sees you as a human, respects you for being a human, and says you need to take care of yourself as a human, and we will build this thing, and
Yeah.
it will be great and wonderful because we believe in the value of what we're building and where we can impact people's lives. But we're not going to do that successfully if everyone sitting in the office is there because they have to be here for a certain number of hours. They've got to punch the clock. No one's afraid to leave first. All of those pieces. Like when you give people the respect of being able to take care of themselves and advocate for themselves and make decisions for themselves, you get the best of them.
You do. And it really, built a culture around that sort of individual ethos and identity, and we're not all the same. And yeah, I mean, it was just like at any given day, the desks were empty. Everybody was in taking class, and it started from the top, the Sadie and Chris, the founders, while very dedicated to the business, were not micromanagers in the least. I mean, they built a team of people they empowered to make Bar3 their own. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just like at any given day, somebody's, on their lunch break going to get acupuncture or working from home before that was a thing. I mean, yeah, this was like the Wild West. I wrote the maternity plan. I was the person to get pregnant at Bar3 and, did my research and was like, hey, proposed it to Sadie, like, here's what I think it should look like. And then, of course, in rapid succession, everybody ends up getting pregnant and having babies. That's just who was working at Bar3 at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just extremely rewarding in every sense. And I think once you taste that work environment that is so attuned to personal needs and, doing your best, and that, the sky is the limit. I mean, boutique fitness was white hot in 2010. We were moving fast and taking care of ourselves. Like
It's radical.
radical.
Isn't that crazy? Like you're doing well and taking care of yourself, and people are like, mind blown,
Yeah.
completely mind blown.
Yeah. Now, of course, all the science and longevity and, it's all being studied. And it's like, oh, yeah, newsflash, that's actually like how it works. That's how you avoid burnout. That's how you create loyalty and, air quotes, employee satisfaction, all of, that. But it felt really exciting to be like on the forefront of that.
And so how does that translate into what you're doing now with Sit Still? Like how does the culture of that having, you sort of hit this pinnacle when it comes to work-life balance and addressing your own needs and things like that? Like, are you able to bring that into the startups that you work with that follow from there?
Absolutely. Every brand and business is different. And Yes, there are absolutely sort of the table stakes of, I kind of like joke, I'm like unemployable, because there's so much freedom that comes with being your own boss, but there is a lot of sort of invisible or visible pressure that also comes with like being in control of your own destiny to a certain extent. I co-own Sit Still with three other women. So it is sort of a shared responsibility. And that has been really nice from the perspective of we're all moms. We've all like sort of child reared in the early days of Sit Still getting off the ground. And having that just support and understanding has been really crucial in building the business. And it's also, so relevant. We've got kids and we're building a business all around kids and really reimagining this category, which is really fun and exciting. There are some key differences, though, too, when you look at just sort of the business fundamentals of boutique fitness and who owns the boutique fitness franchise and who works under that franchisee. This is a completely different industry with a completely different cast of characters.
Mm.
And you have to adapt to that.
How did you guys come up with the idea? How did that all get started for Sit Still Kids?
The original Sit Still has been in existence since 2007. So my business partner is the founder of the original location. It's where I took my two kids for their first haircut. I fell in love with it as a brand. And I really do believe there is a huge distinction between brands and businesses. There's a million places to get your haircut, to get your kids' haircut. Not all of them are brands. Sit Still was a brand from the get. And that's what intrigued me to be involved. But in 2018, the founder of Sit Still, we were connected. And she shared with me that she wanted to scale the business and franchise it. And at that time, I had been with Bar3, close to 10 years. It was like, wow. I never really saw myself doing anything else, but this really captivated me. And I looked at the category of kids' hair salons that franchise. There are very few players. There
Mhm.
just weren't that many kids' hair salons in general. And I sort of butted that up next to, wow, boutique fitness is like everywhere. It's saturated. It grew so quickly. And I got the itch to go do what I had done with Bar3, do it for myself as a founder, as a co-founder, and to get into a space that was just ripe for a reimagined experience. And so that's what we've been doing.
It's awesome. How many Sit Still locations are there?
There are 28 salons open.
Wow. And is it West Coast based or is it?
We're in 15 states. We're all across the country. We have 45 more salons in development.
Oh
So
my God.
territories sold and salons opening. So yeah, it's taking off.
That's amazing. How many? So I don't know anything about franchising, not my wheelhouse whatsoever. But like, what is the level of saturation for something like that? Like you said, the boutique fitness market is saturated. Like I can tell you where I live, if you want a kettlebell, if you want a bike, if you want to run, if you want to whatever, there's a boutique for everything around here. So like, what is is it like per mile radius? Is that how it all factors?
Yeah, we do quite a bit of demographic analysis before we, open doors in any given market. But the high level math around dedicated salons for children, so a kid's hair salon, the ratio of that to children in this country under the age of 12 currently is one salon to every 92,500 kids. So that right there tells you there's just huge opportunity to cater to this niche-ish market, even though, there's 48 million kids in this country under the age of 12. So it's sort of just this like forgotten
Yeah.
audience. And, for us, I think maybe answering your question more directly, there could be, and I believe will be, hundreds of sit stills when it's all said and done. Think about, your neighborhood. I always use Whole Foods. I'm like, where there's a Whole Foods, there should be a sit still. Like it's
Yeah.
all as simple as that. Yeah. So we're just getting started.
Yeah. I mean, really, because I think it's a brilliant idea, having children that I have two of my kids have never gotten their haircut in an actual like salon or kids haircut place because my youngest two are 7 and 5. And so I cut their hair during the pandemic.
Right.
And now my youngest is like, what do people do in that place? I was like, they get the haircut. It's like,
Yeah.
their mom doesn't cut.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
it's very fragmented and I applaud you big time because way to make a go of it and not have your kids, hate you after the fact. Yeah.
there's lollipops involved. Don't worry.
Oh, same and sit still. Transition very nicely into coming to along. Yeah. No, you look at, and when I thought about getting into this industry and it's like really boutique fitness to kids' hair, like, got to wrap my head around that one. But when you think about the service and the fact that it's really a utility for parents, and, we as moms, you have babies and you have your pediatrician and your kid gets old enough, they're going to the dentist. And then there's the preschool and there's sort of all of these resources and tools that you have in your toolkit. Become a mom, and these are the things you do. A parent. Kids' hair is that thing that just, there's no clear answer as to
Right.
how you address it. And I thought that was really interesting. New had said that from the get. She was just like, you're really, as a parent, left to your own devices, which means, like you, very brave, you cut your own kids' hair. For a lot of people, that's not a long-term solution. 2, you take them to your stylist, who, by the way, has no interest in cutting kids' hair. That's not why he or she is in the profession, but they will because they like you, and it's good money because it's going to be expensive. If I were to take my kids to Cherie, who's been cutting my hair for 15 years, she's going to charge me like $100. At this point, probably $100 to cut my daughter's hair for sure. So that's not a long-term solution either. And then you have the discount chain, Supercuts, Great Clips, the barbershops, some of the kid concepts, and they all sort of behave the same way. They're price conscious. You're going to be able to get a very affordable haircut at Supercuts, but it's going to be a 7-minute haircut. And sometimes you get what you pay for, right? It's not going to be a consistent experience. And that I just found really interesting. It's like, who's the Starbucks of kids' hair?
Right.
Nobody. So is that an opportunity? And I really believe it is.
That is cool. I really like that because it just encompasses all of these things at once, right? It's like massive pain point, figuring out a solution. Like there's a place that's 2 towns over that you can, I live in New England, so everything's like right next door, even though it's towns away, where you can go and kids get their hair cut and stuff. And it's like, it's such a great idea, but I don't imagine that the owner there would ever say, I want to expand this out and franchise this.
Yeah, because
That's
there's
that
a good
leap.
chance the owner of a mom and pop is a stylist. And I think that even, the fact that my business partner, she's not a stylist. She's a very stylish. She has a great eye. She worked in retail and merchandising and took that lens in building out the sit still salon aesthetic and experience. And that really is a big distinction versus somebody who has kind of come up as their trade and then, built 4 walls around that.
Yeah, that's got to be a much bigger transition because it's almost, if you're running your own salon, you've got the business experience and all of those pieces, but how do you translate that into growth? And then they find you, right? They're like, I need Amy. Amy, help
Well,
me.
hopefully, yeah, our franchisees are not hairstylists. They're business owners. If they're doing this right, they're really good at finding top talent. And we train extensively on that recruitment piece.
I love that. Very cool. And so navigating this, we talk about like you're navigating this with kids and they are growing up as you're going through the salon and that piece. Like, how does that translate for them? Like when they see you building these businesses and stuff like that, like how does that impact them or trickle down to them?
Because I live it every day and it's just sort of all they know, I think about it. I'm like, gosh, what would happen if my life was different and I got in, I kissed them goodbye in the morning, made their lunch, kissed them goodbye, got in my car, went somewhere else and came home at night. As I work from home and I'm in our salons and they have literally grown up getting their hair cut at Sit Still. And they do have a sense of pride and ownership in that. And they also know the stresses that come with being a business owner. And I think that's really healthy. I love that they have that exposure. And I have conversations with my son, specifically, he's the 13-year-old, talking about college and just what you want to do when you get older. And really being honest, I don't believe 4-year universities are right for every kid. I don't know if that's going to be right for my kids. And I look at the cost of what sending someone to a 4-year college, and I'm like, you could buy a business. For that amount of money, you could buy a business. You could go buy a distressed business. You could start a business. You could partner with somebody. You could buy a franchise. Like my mind kind of goes to all the other things. And I was fortunate enough. I went to a 4-year college. I got a good degree. I landed in New York City the day after I graduated college, and nobody that ever interviewed me asked where I went to school to see my credentials. They were like, oh, warm body. Yeah, you look like you can do the job. And if you can't, I'll fire you. Like that was the environment. And so I really think about that and just how the world has changed and that, it'd be really interesting to sort of think about all of the options that youth today have to make something of themselves. And I think learning business from the inside out is so valuable. And I'm stoked for my kids that they have been exposed to what it means to take risk and build something.
Yeah. And also, too, like you said, some of it works really well and some of it doesn't. And it's that idea of like, how do you bounce out of a situation that, you go in fully intending for everything to work, best laid plans, all of that stuff. And if it doesn't, how do you navigate out of that? Because I feel like when if it was only ever success, one after another, it's like, well, my mom did it and I saw her do this. And so this is what it's like. But you're really getting the backstage view. It's like, my mom is on this phone call and these things are not going well. And sharing that perspective helps
Yeah.
people really go into the experience with a full 360 view. They're not getting the highlights.
Correct. And you learn the most from the challenges. You learn the most from what doesn't work. I 100% believe that because when things are humming, you're not critically thinking about them as
Yeah.
much, not as intuitive to be like, wow, this is really working. Let me take some time to really understand why. It's like, whoa, this isn't working. I need to understand why it's not working. I need to course correct. I need to turn inward. I need to see my place in this. Like all of that is so real. And I do talk to my kids about that, navigating the challenges and, bringing the humility and the fact that, we're all learning. It doesn't matter how achieved or how successful you've been. There are no guarantees.
Yeah. I just read a thing. I think it was this year. it was either this past fall or this fall, the first school in the US, the first 4-year school will hit $100,000 a year tuition. It's in Connecticut. I can't remember the name of the school, but it'll be $100,000
A university?
a university for kids to go per year.
Yeah.
$400,000 degree.
Yeah. Show me the job that makes that ROI work. And I know they're out there, but it's putting kids on very narrow tracks, to make that back. And of course, I say that and it's like, well, get into AI, robotics, tech. Yeah, there's some huge salaries to be had, but I want to see like the shakeout there of like, how do we justify that? And then how do we justify that one for the kid that takes that path and has the resources to take that path? How does it all work out for them? But also then just how exclusionary that is. Who can afford to send their kid to that school?
I mean, that's an undergraduate degree with a med school level of debt.
Correct. Right.
And I mean, if you're going on to med school or dental school or any of those, the industries where the salaries at some point, the ROI happens. But that's not day 2 after graduation. That's year 15 after. And, we've been paying these loans and paying. Or if you have the opportunity to do that, like that's great to go through and not have all of that piece. I do think that there is an educational reckoning on the horizon because the level of sustainability is dropping. And I'm interested to see how that goes because there are like you're saying, like things like the tech piece and, there's so much in the world that kids have access to ahead outside of university because that used to be one of the things, right? If you wanted to have access to that programming or that lab or that whatever, you had to go to that school and that's how they got you there. But if you're talking about robotics, if you're talking about computers, if you're talking about anything along those lines, the tech moves so fast and we're not talking about a $300 iPhone anymore. We're talking about being able to get the equipment into your house to do these things.
Totally. It's really being deconstructed in such an fast and interesting way. And you're exactly right. It's like the level of access we all have, the youth included, to participate and, to just be a part of how these systems all work. There's like a lot of pros to that. There's a lot of cons. I don't think we really understand the implications of what technology means for our kids today. I mean, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of chatter. But yeah, it sort of butts up against these institutions that have just behaved and been what they are. 4-year university, huge price tag. And it's like, exactly to your point, like the barriers of access to what happens inside the 4 walls of that university. It's like, no, you can take classes online. You can understand what's happening real time without actually physically even needing to be at that school.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like my kids, the difference. So I went to a 4-year school and then I did 2 postgraduate degrees, right? So like I'm the poster child of I'm a 41-year-old woman who went to school and got like great grades. And then I went to the good school and then I went to the good school and all of this stuff, right? Like I checked all the boxes. And a lot of that stuff I don't use in my day to day. Like I am an occupational therapist who now has a tech startup. It doesn't, but I got to that through another one, right?
Right.
Then look at my kids are like, they have 2 parents and my husband did a 2-year degree and then he went to a trade school. And it is like, it's just like, I tell my daughter, like she wants to do art. I'm like, if you want to do art, go to plumbing school so that you can make the money to be able to do the art that you want to do.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away. And she's like, oh, plumbing is gross. I'm like, you're thinking of the wrong part. Like I'm talking about plumbing as in like install and all of that. Like the part of plumbing that you're thinking about is not the part that the
Yeah. You
plumbers deal with.
the 1-800 number. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's all changing. It's all so interesting. And I have a lot of hope and fear, you
Mhm.
know, two sides of the same coin, I guess.
Yeah. But I just think it's really for them in their lifetime. Like I grew up with like you go to school and then you go to school and then you get a good job and you do that. But meanwhile, they have both of those
Yeah.
reference points of like, okay, well, it worked out this way, but it also worked out this way. And so
Mhm.
then having that really wide lens of saying, what do you really want to do? And how can you support yourself being able to do that? Does it
Yeah.
mean that you need to take on $200,000 in
Right.
undergraduate debt? No.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really, to me, it all gets sort of synthesized through the ultimate question, which is what is going to make you a content human being? What is going to fulfill you? And I think that fulfillment, I know that fulfillment is really rooted in feeling purpose.
Yeah.
That you have a place, that you are meaningful, and there are so many different ways to define that. We're all different. Purpose for you is going to feel different than it does for me, than your kiddos, than mine, than, our partners. But there's purpose doesn't necessarily come in the job.
Right.
So having that, be the North Star without really doing sort of the personal inventory of like, is this going to fulfill me? And is this going to give me a sense of purpose in my day and in my life? And yeah, sometimes, we all just need the job to have the job, and then the purpose comes outside of that.
Yeah. Have you read Jennifer Braheny Wallace? Not Walness. She
No.
wrote a book called Never Enough. It
Okay.
is a fabulous read. It's also a really fabulous read for someone who has kids your age because it's all about this idea of kids tying their value to their achievements. And it's
Right.
all achievements in service of getting to the
The
right school,
place.
the right job, the right blah, 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 and how struggling the mental health crisis, that's a whole can of
Yeah.
worms that is just like,
Yeah.
that's a bird's nest. But that a component of that lies in this idea of like wanting to do the right thing as parents by saying, this is I take my formula and I apply it to you. And you have to go to the right after school program and the right volunteer and the right sport and the right team and the right all of this stuff. And how at the end of it all, we're forgetting, or along the way, not the end of it all, along the way, we're forgetting that intrinsic value piece
Yeah.
that's being missed. And so I think to your point, like, being able to just lead from a place of intrinsic value. Like you said, I'm not qualified to do this job, but you're more than qualified, right? And you're not qualified in a traditional way where you don't have the stamp degree and all that stuff, but you're probably more qualified than somebody who went and got a stamp degree because you've had to consider these things in all these different angles.
Yeah, no, just worthiness. And that
Yeah.
we put so much pressure on that external validation that really, and, I think about this and I work on this every day, is outsourcing your self-worth. It's letting other people define who you think you are instead of, sort of bringing a wholeness to whatever it is that's in front of you. And I think that's really like the rub here, is that if you're outsourcing your worthiness to making the team, getting the job, being included, like it's never going to be enough because you don't control that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You've got to control what you can control. In one of my favorite quotes in a movie is Olaf. and they're sticking all the icicles in his head. And he's like, I am controlling what I can control. Meanwhile, everything's falling apart around him. I'm like, oh,
Exactly. Exactly. And that is environmental because we're not born feeling less than.
right.
We are not. No, that is imparted on us once we start participating in, sort of life outside the home.
Yeah. And that is I think one of the hardest parts about parenting is having this little teeny tiny being that you are sending out into the world, and then they come back with stuff like that. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't do this. I'm not good enough. I don't know how to do this. And you're like, I just would like to bubble wrap you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't. And that's the
Yeah.
hard part, I think.
It really is. And those are the things, I mean, I feel like every day observing and bearing witness to my kids understanding the beauty and the pain that is, just being a person in time and space right now and just being a cocoon for them where
Mhm.
they can process. And it is that sort of how much do you insert versus sort of allow them to have that experience on their own. And this, back to what we were talking about, an interesting age in thinking about how much of a role, as parents we play in them understanding kind of what they're experiencing.
Yeah. And I mean, you're at a point where they're starting to launch. And it's a
Mhm.
long runway. So it's not like, tomorrow they're going to be packing up their things, but
Right.
it's a long runway. But it's this whole new phase where you're saying, okay, I knew how to solve this. I knew how to fix this when you were 0 to 5 or when you were 5 to 10. But now 10 to 18 it's
Yeah.
a whole different.
There's less controlled variables.
Mhm.
Your amount of controlled variables decreases with their independence and them just growing and, being more self-sufficient and out in the world on their own. And so that's where I think you double down on the controlled variables, within the home. And that is something, I've read and heard. And I know Dr. Becky, like her buzzword is sturdiness. It's like that's the attribute of a parent. It's just sturdiness, that the temperature of the home in any given moment is changing based on what the kids are kind of bringing in. But if you
Mhm.
can just be that constant, sturdy presence, my husband's really good at that. And I'm a little bit more like, I am going to I'm gonna like blow with the wind depending on what they're bringing home. And so I'm just, paying attention to that. Like,
Yeah. Where you standing in the pantry going, I don't know what just happened.
yeah, what's happening right now? Like, mommy time out. Whoa, their problems aren't my problems. Their wins aren't my wins. They're their own person. But yeah, I mean, no one teaches you this. And my husband says it all the time. No one prepared us for this. Like, we did not get the letter in the mail when we had a baby that said, by the way, here's how it's going down.
Yeah.
We did not get that memo. Neither did you. Nobody does.
And it's not even a memo or a book or whatever. It's the throwback Encyclopedia Britannica that's got 27 volumes. That's what we were really needing to get because you need one, it's that cute, like 0 to 1, 1 to 2, but you need it for all of the years because the stuff that you learn when they're babies is not going to help you. I mean, yes, but it's not going to help you as effectively when they're 17.
Right. No, it's all changing and we're all changing. It's not like, oh, we all reached a point of full maturation and then we had babies. Then we procreated. Like, we're
Mhm.
still learning and growing and developing. And I really feel that, that the best thing I can do for my kids is get very honest with myself about my own journey and the things I continue to work on and just what I'm wrestling with at any given moment, in my own evolution and just turning that inside out. I do not have it all figured out. I struggle every day the same way they do. They're different struggles, but that's just the human condition. And if
Yeah.
you own that, it kind of becomes what I have found like the great equalizer. And that, all we can really do is impart our own experience and how we've learned from it and sort of teach that. Versus we have it all figured out. We're the bosses. We know best, because that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. It's all relative too, right? It's like the kid that's laying on the floor screaming because they're 3 and not
That's
because they're 3 and they feel out of control and they want to go do something and you can't, whatever. That's relative to them being 3. If
right.
you are 40 and you are supposed to go away with your friends for a weekend and everything gets canceled and blah, blah, blah. You can't lay on the floor and scream and kick, although that's exactly what you want to do, right? It's like, how does that evolve?
Yeah. I mean, you might be doing that on the inside. And I think that's such a good point, because then we hit that point where we're no longer like physically demonstrating necessarily our feelings. We're internalizing our feelings. And if we are not given the tools, if we don't know how to process that, so we're not just like sublimating and, just carrying all of that with us, if we don't have, sort of the emotional recycle system happening, I think that's, where adults just get sort of fatigued and aren't able to bring, their best selves to the parenting game because we're all fried.
Yeah. If we weren't before, we are now. Whatever day that is, right? And it all changes. So given the experience of being a part of a company that prioritizes wellness and evolving through that and everything changing, what are some of the things that you do for you to manage this and both of work and parenting and individual and all of that? What are some of the things that you do?
It really has changed so much like over the years. And I said to my best friend the other day, I said, 2 words I'm going to really try to get rid of in my vocabulary is never and forever, because I don't actually think I'm never going to do this thing again, or I'm going to do this forever, which is kind of how I used to subscribe to things like, oh, I was going to do bar 3 classes forever. No, it's like, well, no, I don't do bar 3 classes anymore. So, like that, or I'm never going to cold plunge. And then it's like, oh, actually cold plunging seems to be the thing that like my body and mind are responding to right now. I'm just, kind of giving some examples. But I think one of the things fundamentally that I have really had to make peace with is that in order for me to be the mom that I want to show up to my kids being, be the wife I want to show up to my husband being, be the business partner and leader in my work life that I want to be, I really do. It's so cliche, but I've got to take like exceptional care of myself. Exceptional. Like almost like the discipline around decision making in terms of how I spend my time, how I move my body, how I fuel my body, how I stimulate my mind, how I connect with the people around me. Like I am not phoning those things in. And that's like its own exercise. I need
Yeah.
a lot of time and space on my own to really think about all these things. So, for me it's movement every day. It is habit stacking. It is being in nature. It's like literally all the things. It's all the things.
Yeah. But it's all the things in a blend, right? Like you're making a
Yeah.
salad, you're not making a scrambled egg. Like it can't
Until-
just, you got
right.
to have a little bit of everything, layer it all in there versus go from 0 to 100 in 12 categories.
Yeah. And I think the key to it all is just having so much grace with myself that it's not going to be perfect, that it's not I'm like one of the things, honestly, I've like noticed about myself pretty recently is like I used to be somebody who could not go to bed if my kitchen counters hadn't been wiped down and like the last dish put away. And I don't know if it's just fatigue or age or just apathy, but I just like look around and I'm like, things like aren't as tidy as they used to be.
Hmm.
I just don't, that's like not, I'm still functioning. I'm still like performing, but maybe that was part of that salad recipe a while ago that like that I sort of needed things to be in place and to feel like there was a sense of order. That's changed a little bit. The edges are softening with age. And I think that allows more time to just go inward and yeah, it's a constant recalibration
Hmm.
around how we want to show up.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. It's that idea of like, as you get older, like, does everything need to fit into this very strict definition or category in order for it to be right or perfect or whatever? It's just like, we can all just take a breath
Yeah.
and get to that 30,000 foot view of like, is this going to be the thing that gets me from point A to point B? If all of these pieces are checked, will I be successful?
Yeah.
That's not even, that sentence doesn't even make sense, right? It's like we can get ourselves in these pathways of thinking about things in a very black and white way. It's like, I need
Right.
to go to bed early tonight because I'm tired. I am not going to wait for the dryer to finish so I can fold
Right.
the
Oh
laundry.
my gosh. Like you're in my brain. There's times like, oh my God, you know what though? It's got like 20 more minutes. And if I just go downstairs and kind of get that going, then tomorrow, and it's just like, no, it's endless. They're futile endeavors. It just doesn't matter. Sleep matters. I mean, I have been a sleep enthusiast forever, like forever. Bedtime has been such a core value of mine pre-kids.
Hmm.
It is the cornerstone. I mean, you could ask my business partners, we'll go on retreats and trips, and I am like nighty night. And I like drank my like Valerian tea. I mouth tape the room, I need a window cracked, I've just been that from my 20s, really from my
I am jealous. I am absolutely jealous. I treat my sleep schedule like a trash can, and I know that it's wrong. I know that it's wrong. I do have 3 loads of laundry that are stacked on the counter above my dryer right now that
okay.
are driving me crazy, but I'm like, I don't have time. But
I
they're
know.
dry and they're clean.
Yeah. They're dry and they're clean. Yeah.
And some of my kids are old enough to fold their own laundry, so if they're looking for it, they can fold it.
That's right. Yeah.
Age,
Yeah.
wisdom, exhaustion, whatever we want to call it.
Just laundry. But it's just, that's the thing. It just never goes away. Geez.
Forever and ever. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And I think it's really important for people to hear stories of people that have sort of navigated a less than traditional path at the very basis of it, because I think that a lot of times what happens in the motherhood experience is you get to everything's new, right? Like nobody knows how to be a mom before you're a mom. And so you go into it with the skills that you have based on everything else in your life before. But then what do you do when everything shifts? Just a seismic shift in all of these different parts of your world. And how do you take that and move it into this next phase of your life? So I always love to have people come on and share their story, especially when, I think the entrepreneur mindset, I'm a little biased, but I think the entrepreneur mindset of like, I don't necessarily know how to do this right now, but I know that I can figure out how to do this
Yeah.
is something that will only bring goodness into your life and grace and forgiveness and belief that you have inherent value in whatever you're doing and that you can make it better. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And let people know where they can find you and follow along with the expansion. And I know that like there might be a few moms / all of the listeners who are probably looking for a place for their kids to get their hair cut, because I will outsource this task.
Okay, you're ready to
Happily.
the outsourcing of your kids' haircut. Yes, we're at sitstillkids.com. We're Sitstill Kids on the gram. We're coming to New England. We're opening
Whoa.
we're opening in the Boston area. We're opening in Providence. It's happening. Couple
Getting there.
work. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I will put all that information in the show notes and ask people that listen to the episode if you have a place that you would like where the next Sit Still Kids can be.
Tell us where we're going next. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, some market research in its best form. So
The moms.
the market will provide you research.
Wow, I love it.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much.